We call to order the Winterville Planning and Zoning Board meeting for the month of August 15th. To order, we welcome all our board members who are present. To any of our board members who are uncomfortable with the distance between you, there are masks in the back if you would like to wear a mask with regard to any concerns with regard to your spatial distance between your other board members. Do we have any excused absences?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Member Darlene Gardner is out of the country and asked for an excused absence.
Okay. We have one request for an excused absence. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to accept.
I second.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor, use your voting sign aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Ms. Gardner is excused. The approval of the agenda, you've had a chance to review the agenda that was sent out to you from the staff.
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Been moved and second. All those in favor, use your voting sign aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Okay, approval of the minutes from the July regular meeting. We had a chance to review those as they were sent to us by staff.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and properly second to approve the minutes from the July regular meeting. All those in favor, use your voting sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Minute stands approved. New business, staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see everybody in attendance tonight. So the one and only action item we have on the agenda is a rezoning request, is what we're calling the Evan Brewer tract. So a little bit of information on that project or that proposal. The applicant is David Evans Jr. and Ann Evans Brewer, located on Church Street Extension. That's at its intersection down with Reedy Branch Road. And we'll show a map here in a second. You can see the parcel numbers there. It's 4 separate parcels, a total of 76.79 acres. It's currently agricultural residential, and a portion of it is R20, and I'll show you that on the map in just a second. So the proposed zoning district is R10. So the adjacent property owners were mailed notification of this of the rezoning request back on the 2nd of this month, and notification was posted on site July 28th. You can see the parcel here, and I think I got it starred. So there's the 4 stars there. So you see it's this parcel, this parcel, this parcel, and this parcel. So to orient you, Reedy Branch Road here, Church Street Extension here. This is Old 11, and then where Reedy Branch wraps back around. So you got Colonial Woods here. Just north of it will be the Brookstone subdivision. That's the Brookstone Phase 2 here. Just an aerial shot again. It'd be this parcel and then this entire corner here. So these two right here and this entire corner. You can see Colonial Woods down here, Reedy Branch on the south side, and Brookstone north of it. There's just an overlay of the map. You can see it outlined there, dash marks again, showing the property in question for the rezoning request. The current zoning. So as I stated, there's 2 different zoning districts. So the parcel that's adjacent to Colonial Woods is R20 currently. The rest of the subject property is AR, agricultural residential. So existing land use, all this is vacant. So there's no use. So this is actually being intended for agricultural uses. I think there's some tinning here, and this is all wooded back over here. So the future land use plan that does call for a suburban residential character area. So our suburban residential character area is generally a larger lot, single family detached residential. So that this was, and this was what the proposal would support, just single family residential. So our character area description, so large lot, lower density, single family residential. This was identified by the community as a land use type that was appropriate and valued in many of the locations around town. So you can see here, 1 to 3 per acre is the recommended density. So going down to sidewalks, one per side or on one side of the road, interior. In typical or potential zoning, kind of listed, pretty much all of our residential zones, R10 is listed in there, which is appropriate for the request. So one of our main policies we like to look at, our recommendations in our land use plan is, reinforcing the town's identity as a family-friendly community. And one of those strategies is to support rezonings to residential uses in the suburban, in the suburban residential character area. So this, as stated before, this is a suburban residential character area. So with that, staff's recommendation, the proposed R10 zoning district would allow land uses that are compatible with the general character area of the area. The adjacent properties are zoned similarly and would provide a smooth transition between existing zoning districts. So planning staff does find the request is reasonable and in public interest because the proposed zoning district is compatible with the surrounding land uses in the future land use plan. So therefore, staff recommends approval of the request to rezone 76.79 acres from AR and R20 to R10. So to go over our process, so public comments can now be entertained by the Planning and Zoning Board. The board would then make a recommendation to Town Council. Council will see this on their next agenda, and they will schedule a public hearing. That'll be at the September 12th meeting, and the actual public hearing will occur on October 10th. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll answer any questions you guys have. Also give the people in attendance a chance to address the board. I will note that the applicant and the project engineer are in attendance for any technical questions.
Okay, so at this time, any board member, if you have any questions before we will take any public comment?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Brian, could you go back? There was a slide you went through very fast that showed the designations, the R10, R12, R15, and the surrounding subdivisions. Could you go back to that slide, please?
Is this what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that Brookstone subdivision R15?
So R15 is the front. If you'll remember, it hasn't been that long ago, within the past year, the property owner came back in and we actually rezoned this to R10.
Okay.
So this board did recommend approval of that. And then across the road is an R8. If you'll remember, this is a conditional use district or conditional district, the R8 with a minimum of 10,000 square feet. So essentially it's an R10. The point behind this was the dimensional requirements for an R8 are a little bit different than R10, specifically lot width. So the shape of this lot or the shape of this property really kind of put them in a bind as far as getting lot count in there, so they needed that lot width. So that's why they went with the R8, but the conditional use was 10,000 square foot minimum. So you can see it's nothing that we haven't done in the past in this immediate area, specifically the recent past with the R8 and R10 there. So that's why staff felt pretty comfortable recommending approval.
My second question, and if you would bear with me, Brian, is going back to the future plan use, or the comprehensive plan use slide, it showed R10 with additional amenities. In considering a rezoning, we have no knowledge of additional amenities being added to this property at this time. Is that correct?
As it stands right now, it's not a condition on that rezoning, so you would just, it's a straight R10 rezoning. So our subdivision ordinance does require a specific amount of open space. There can be a payment in lieu of that. So it's one way or the other, you're getting the recreation facility taken care of, sort of. The payment in lieu of is meant to provide recreational areas within town, so it's sort of a mitigated factor, but typically you will see a recreational area that's already required. So going above and beyond would be up to the developer to propose that. So
The reason I ask this, I'm going back to when Eli's Ridge was before this board for the rezoning.
sure.
This board voted against rezoning because they had R10 and R8. It went to council, the town council, and it was approved for an R10, but it had to do with amenities. And I have a letter in my brochure that I saved from Councilman Moore saying he approved it because it had a swimming pool. I'm torn. I like the R12.5 zoning because it gives more lot space. That's 4 per acre, which is what that comprehensive land use
Sure.
recommends. R10 gets now 5.5 per acre, 5.5 lots per acre. That's a
So-
lot denser.
so
I'm just very concerned about the density.
Well, and I'll go a little bit into depth on the density too. So an acre is 43,000, 43,000 and some change. So you got 10,000 square foot lots. Ideally, mathematically, it would say you get a little bit over 4.
Yeah, but you had low.
So you get four an acre, but when you start planning out a subdivision, one, you have to take out road right away. So automatically, you're reducing that density right there. So then you got to put in stormwater facilities. Again, you're docking that density down. Then any type of open space recommendations, or open space amenities that you would do. So yeah, on paper, it would seem that way that you would get that density, but in all actuality, let's take Brookstone, this one, in effect, this was about, I think this is around 30 acres. I actually made notes because I got stuff down. Let's see. So Brookstone is 27 acres, 49 lots. That's 1.8 per acre. So by the time, and you've got in that subdivision, almost 4 acres of road right-of-way going through there. So you see, like I said, on paper, it seems that way, but typically you're not going to get the full density just from the mathematical equation of splitting it by the minimum lot size. You've got to take into consideration the configuration of the land you're going into. Like I said, the road right-of-ways, the BMPs, any type of amenities, and that's going to take automatically. You're going to be about a third less than what you really would be, and that's just one example. I could go through multiple subdivisions and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Brookfield, Lower Yellis, and Old Tar. So the last section of that was around, it's like 33 lots on the last one, but the calculation was 2.5 per acre. So that's an R10. So on paper, it looks like they could get way more than that, but it's never going to work out that way just with what the requirements are going to be. So that's really the stance that we look at coming into it, that yeah, the mathematical equation is going to give you a density that looks like it's going to be more than what the plan calls for, but that's never going to be the case.
Any other question from board? I know that this is just a request with regard to rezoning, and we're not talking about plats or anything like that. But we also had conversation with one of the conditional use and that railroad and that dirt road and
Yeah.
DOT going in there. With regard to the staff making the recommendation, what consideration was given with regard to DOT and that two-way road, that dirt road, that railroad track, and getting in and out of these subdivisions?
For this particular rezoning request, we
Yes.
mean? So this one, access won't be a problem. So you're going to have multiple accesses. So you've got the ability to get access off Reedy Branch and the ability to get access off Church Street Extension. Then you'll actually, so in the event that when they do subdivision plans on the R20 piece, the ordinance requires them to stub in here, so that gives another access. So access is going to be abounding here, like, and the DOT's traffic counts, if you see in my staff report, they're really low. There's not much traffic there. I think you're less than 200 a day on Church Street. I think Reedy Branch was a little bit more than that, but those roadways, according to DOT's manual, can handle way more than that. We're talking they can handle thousands a day. So, and a subdivision of this nature wouldn't ever generate that much. But to keep in line with council's policy of multiple entrances and exits and the subdivision ordinance requirements, they would have plenty of opportunity to provide that.
Thank you. If there are no other questions from the board, we will now entertain public comments from the audience. You'll have 2 minutes, and if you'll state your name, and we'll begin from there.
My name's Linwood Stroud with Stroud Engineering. I'm working for David Evans, the owner, who is here also. I am responsible for preparing the rezoning request, and I would be the designer for the project. I would just like to reemphasize some of the things already stated by Brian in a very professional way, that the rezoning we were asking for is compatible with the other rezonings that had occurred in that neighborhood in the last couple of years, including Brookstone and Blueberry, R10 for Brookstone, R8 CUD for Blueberry. This rezoning request is in line with those requests as well, which were approved. Also, in compliance with Winterville's land use plan. And I would say, as a designer, probably we wouldn't get any more than 2.5 lots per acre on this property when we consider all of the area that's taken up by streets, amenities, stormwater management, BMPs, and the possibility of wetlands that always takes away from density also. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you have, and also have Mr. Evans here as well.
Good afternoon. I'm David Evans, Jr. I'm president of Garris Evans Lumber Company. My sister and I own this property together. We were the developers of Canterbury subdivision, and Winterville, which is a R10 subdivision. And we would like to make a similar subdivision out of this property. We've developed a lot of subdivisions in Wilson and Greenville, among which are Brook Valley, Lindale East, Tucker Estates. Like I say, the property is owned by my sister and I. It was part of my grandfather's farm, and we have a lot of sentimental value for the farm, and we certainly want to develop something very nice. If approved for a subdivision, we plan to develop a subdivision very similar to Canterbury. And we are local, we are located here in Pitt County, and we use quality builders, sell lots to quality builders, and we plan to create a very nice subdivision out of the property. And we would like to ask that you approve it. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer. I'd like for my sister to stand up, if you would. So she's the owner. Also, my son, John Evans, with Garris Evans Lumber Company.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions from board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Please come to the stand and use the podium. And if you would speak into the mic, we do have those who have hearing impairments that needs the audio from the mic.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Dale Manning. I do not know the difference between an R10 and an R20. Could somebody explain that to me? Am I the only guy in the room that doesn't know the difference? That's what I thought. That's all I got. That's
fine.
you?
Yeah, I can do it. Thank you, Mr. Manning. So R20, R10, anything with an R in it stands for residential. The number would correlate to the minimum lot size. So as it stands right now, R20 minimum lot square footage is 20,000 square foot. R10 would be a 10,000 minimum square foot lot size. AR, that's kind of a holding place. If you look at the way the zoning ordinance is designed, AR is generally speaking going to be out in the outer reaches of town. They were most likely a septic tank driven area, so the AR would accommodate enough lot size to do a septic tank. So, and typically speaking, the minimum lot size on that is the exact same as R20, is 20,000 square feet. So whether or not 20,000 square feet would accommodate a septic system in today's environment depends on the soils, obviously, and that would be dependent on environmental health through the county. They do all that, the perk test and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, well, again, we have those who cannot hear.
I can repeat the question if you want. No, it's fine.
It was a long trip for a man my age, and quite honestly, I forgot my next question. Sorry. Let me ask you, what would be the typical square footage in an R10? I know you're talking about possibly from 10,000 square feet
Yeah.
to 20,000 square feet per house.
And it's a great question. So I'll say Brookfield, I kind of anticipated these questions, so I did some calculations on it. Average lot size in Brookfield, which is the one on Lori Ellis Old Tar, is 13,132 square feet. I didn't do the calculation on Brookstone, but I think it's more in the area of 15,000 square feet because it's such a 1.8 per acre. Don't quote me on that one. So you're going to get anywhere from 10 to 15,000 square feet on it, and potentially larger, just depending on, once you get into the nuances of the actual lot lines and the way it's laid out. And Linwood could obviously speak a little bit more about that on the technical side, but it just really depends on how the lots lend itself to the design. So you're going to have some that are going to be kind of the pie shape, especially on a cul-de-sac, where they're going to go deeper. You're going to have just larger lots naturally on that side. So yeah, but minimum, at the very bare minimum, they could be 10,000 square foot. That's as low
That's
as they
the
can.
lots.
Yeah, the lots. So the houses themselves, there's no minimum square footage in the zoning ordinance for a heated square foot house that the zoning ordinance does. Now, the North Carolina Building Code does require a certain amount of square footage to be considered a home. I'm not exactly sure what that is off the top of my head, but it's somewhere under 1,000 square feet.
Yes.
But I mean, it's like 1,000, somewhere along there. Typically, I'll say in this market, you're going to be looking at a minimum of 1,800 square foot. I'm not putting words in Mr. Evans' mouth, but if you see anything less than that around here, I'd be really surprised.
Okay. All right, so you're talking about we can see anything between 1,000 square feet and 1,800 square feet? Just by the footage that it would, by the square footage
You're talking
of the
about
lot?
the heated square, no, I
Yeah, the
mean,
heated square foot of a house.
I would think a 10,000 square foot lot. So let's just take Cornerstone. Cornerstone's an R6 neighborhood. They are 6,000 square foot lots, and they are pretty consistently 6,000 square foot lots, 6,000 square foot lots, and they have anywhere from 3,500 to 4,500 square foot houses sitting on those lots.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and I mean, that is one of the drawbacks of that type of neighborhood. But if you're looking for a quality home with a tight design, that's probably about the best one you're going to get. So Cornerstone bang for buck as far as property value is probably one of the highest in town, if not one of the highest in the county. That'd be on Fire Tower Road, so right across from Temple Free Will Baptist.
Any other public comments?
My name is Lonnie Stafford. I live at 3386 Davy Street in Colonial Woods, and most of these individuals here live in that area. I think from the gathering of those that have showed up tonight that our biggest concern is the density of the neighborhood encroaching upon us. I don't think we're not opposed to having neighbors and having build up, but since we are already in an R20 with nice sized lots and spread out with trees and wooded area around us, we would prefer to have something more than an R10. Something with an appearance. I know there's a canal down here that borders this particular region. Everything north of that is very density, from our opinion, and that would provide a nice buffer area as a transition into a larger lots, larger houses, and a more appealing area for families. So we would prefer to have your consideration in the appearance of the neighborhood and the size of the lots required. Thank you.
My name is Dennis McCoy. I also live in Colonial Woods subdivision.
And my wife and I and a neighbor in that subdivision, we walk out Reedy Branch Road, we go up Church Street to Allen, or to Bobby Allen's place, or Park Road, and then we turn and come back. That's 2.5 miles. We do that 3, 4, 5 times a week. And I understand, well, with Brookstone going in there, of course, the traffic has increased, and also other walkers have increased through there. And so I'm not going to debate whether the 200 vehicles per day or 1,000 a day seems to me like a whole lot of people. And so that concerns me, but really my main concern is last week we received at my house 3.3 inches of rainfall. And whenever we receive that kind of rainfall in a short period of time like we did, that one rainfall was 2.6 inches. And so therefore, we get flooding, not so much in our neighborhood, but all that goes downstream. And as Lonnie mentioned, that canal that goes across there floods regularly. And it did flood, not over the road or anything, but it did rise, and it does wash a lot. And we have been down there that it does flood a lot. Even some in our neighborhood does flood, bordering this parcel right here that's R20. So I guess my concern is stormwater control. I think at the densities that is being discussed here, I'm concerned about the permeability percentage of the plat, and also the stormwater control. I think that's going to be, and all that goes on, obviously goes on down and comes back down Swift Creek Canal. So I guess it has increased. The stormwater has increased. I've been there for over 30 years in that neighborhood, and so therefore I just think this is going to be another contribution to increased stormwater. And I guess so therefore I agree. I think we should have a transition period to increase our green space rather than, or just maintain the R20 on that part that borders us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Clifton Cahoon. I live at 3309 Davie Street in Colonial Woods subdivision. I've been there 6 years. My wife, Catherine Cahoon, is with me here tonight for the record, representing us also. I moved from Ayden. I lived on a 1 acre lot for 24 years until the DOT came and took it for the bypass. I moved here because I wanted to live in a neighborhood that had large lots and spread out. As you can see, I border where the applicant is talking about rezoning. If I can work this thing. So here you see the Colonial Woods outlined in black. Of course, the rezoned applicant area is in yellow still. I'm still struggling with the explanation of the density. When I read the subdivision, the zoning ordinance, it says an R10 is a 10,000 square foot lot. It can be a 10,000 square foot lot. 4.35 units per acre. Well, that is negating the streets and everything else. If you take 4.35, 10,000 square foot lots, you've got the R10 density. So it seems to me it's based on the lots alone. So I did a comparison, lots only. The Colonial Woods subdivision is 18 acres. It has 20 dwellings in it. It's completely built out. That equates to 1.1 units per acre. If your R10 will allow 4.35 units per acre, that's almost 4 times the density of what our subdivision is. Drilling down a little more, these are the 3 lots that border the applicant's property. They happen to be the 3 largest lots in the subdivision, one of which is mine. And when you look at the same statistics here, we're looking at 4.1 acres with 3 dwellings on it, equates to 0.73 units per acre. And if you compare that to your R10 allowance, what is possible, you're looking at right at 6 times the density of what we currently have in our neighborhood.
30 seconds, sir.
Now, what does that mean? What does that feel like when you're driving through? This is what it feels like. Colonial Woods on the left. You can see that the average lot size for the whole subdivision is 0.9 acres, 39,000 and some change square feet. This is Magnolia Ridge on Reedy Branch Road, zoned R10. It even has 1/3 acre lots. It has 14,000 square foot lots. I beg to differ with staff's opening comments when he said R10 is a smooth transition to R20. That does not look like a smooth transition to me. There we are at the bottom with some neighboring area. All the lots are generally the same large size, the
That is
yellow.
time, sir.
And you can see there's plenty of room to transition from the denser stuff that's going on up at Winterville. So I just ask respectfully that we have more of a transition from what we have to the R10. R10 is not a smooth transition.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Board, for allowing us and me specifically to make a few comments. I'm Russell Gibbs. I reside at 3347 Church Street Extension. My property, I don't see it right here, but if someone will help me,
We're going to be right there.
that's it. That's a little trapezoidal-shaped property. It's a little unusual in size. My property is 4.3 acres thereabout. That's unusual. Appreciate the opportunity that the former landowners afforded me that. I will be bound on 3 sides, as you can see if this could be expanded, on the rear of my property, on the right, and across the road. I have no problem with that. Also, to the left of my property, on Church Street Extension, the lots are very reasonable. I believe the lot next to me is 1.4 acres. The next lot certainly is more than a half acre. Even the lot on the corner is quite large. Not here to put a damper on expansion. That's going to happen. No question about it. But if we could control that to still make our community feel like we have some room to breathe,
30
rather
seconds.
than being elbow to elbow with our neighbors, that would be a blessing to all of us. I appreciate what Mr. Evans and Miss Ann is proposing. But I will be hurt if I see an R10 designation in my community. I guess that's me. Thank you.
Really short. My name is Laura Joyner. I live in Colonial Woods as well. I'm going to come at this from a different perspective. We've lived in Colonial Woods for almost 30 years, raised 3 children, and now have 2 grandchildren that come and run around in our neighborhood freely, in the roads, everywhere, and it's a very safe, small community. And to have An access road to come in at the end of a dead-end road is very concerning. I understand that's growth, but to limit it to have multiple houses with an R10 designation would have, even though I know you said little traffic, but to have all that traffic then coming through our neighborhood, whereas now we have 16 houses in our neighborhood, would then have multiple houses to being able to access through our neighborhood to get to many more houses. So an R20 designation would be much more palatable to us, would bring in a lot, more families and everything, but also I think would be a safer option for our families.
Thank you.
My name is Andy Riggs. I live at 5947 Reedy Branch Road, just around the corner, sort of between the proposed change in designation and Colonial Woods. I'm right on that piece of Reedy Branch Road. I really can't say anything any different than what's been said, other than to express my concern also that I'm concerned about the R10 designation, not about development, but about the designation. Once it's done, it's done, and there's not any control then, once you vote on it, once the council votes on it, as to what goes on there. I also don't think it's a smooth transition. I think a higher designation would be better in keeping with what's already in that neighborhood. And I would ask, everybody might not be coming up, but if you share that same concern about the designation being too low and the density being too low, would you please stand or raise your hand? Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? If there be none, to this board. Yes, sir. 2 minutes, yes, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to address one of the comments that was made about drainage, just to remind the board that Winterville does have a stormwater management ordinance. We are required to retain water on the development so that the runoff after development will be no more during a 10-year storm. The rate of runoff will be no more than it was before development, and those plans are reviewed by the town and the town's engineers during the during the construction plan review process and the preliminary plat. So we are required to comply with those ordinances. I should remind you of that. And I don't really have any other comments.
Thank you.
Hi, Board. Thank you. My name is Jennifer Nagu, and I currently reside on Church Street Extension. When my husband and I bought the property, it was because we are so close to town and the amenities of town, but it was also a ways away, which is what we enjoy. And I think what you have heard from tonight is that a lot of us use Church Street Extension as a constant walk. But with the R20 that we currently have and with the larger lots, we do have a community. We do have very close-knit feelings for each other. So I don't think that we need houses on top of houses in an R10. We do have that community feel of enjoyment and having surroundings of a community within an R20. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay, if there be no other public comments, Board, you are tasked with regard to the recommendation made by staff with regard to rezoning the Evans Brewer property from its current designation to a R10. Keeping in mind that this is just an approval of a recommendation, the final decision is set by is made by the town council. What is the pleasure of the board regarding this recommendation?
I'd like to make a comment, please. I have a great concern about the Planning and Zoning Board continue to approve the large number of R10 zoning requests in this town. We have almost the same number of R10 subdivisions as all the other subdivisions put together. And I think that's something to be recognized and concerned about. Thank you.
Okay. With regards to the agenda item, the request or recommendations for the request for rezoning, what is the pleasure of this board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we deny the request.
Okay, the motion before the board is a motion to deny the request or recommendation for the change for rezoning.
I second that, and I do that because I think the community of the town has spoken and made their wishes known.
Okay, we have a motion and a proper second. For this vote, we ask that you use your voting sign of your right hand with regards to the denial of the recommendation. All those in favor, use your voting sign of your right hand. We ask to deny. Yeah. Yes.
I just want to make sure I understand from public comment that the problem is really what I hear is the density. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, the size of the recommendation would increase the density of homes in that area.
I'm just curious if anybody's worried. Does it matter? I'm just curious. Does it matter the size of the house? Does that not make a difference to the size? Just curious.
Right.
We heard that. I haven't heard anything.
Right, well, at this point, we're not talking, well, and we're not in plats at this particular time.
Well, I'll speak a little bit to that. So the size of the house can be stipulated through a condition of the rezoning. So it can be an R10 or whatever conditional district, and that condition can specify the minimum square footage of the homes, and that's been done throughout town. So I can name a number of developments that have used that condition as a negotiation tool to get it done. So and that just gives obviously the board a guarantee, a tangible guarantee on what they can expect out there. Now, whether
again,
or not
that is not the issue before us right
Sure.
now. And
Well,
so again, we would be talking about plats and other things. What the motion that is before us is the request for the rezoning.
the rezoning, yeah, so my point of view is that the rezoning can encompass the condition of a community. Now, that's not something you guys can impose, nor town council can impose. It would have to be something that the developer would be agreeable to. In this case, they could take this recommendation, go back to the drawing board and make sure they address those recommendations. So anyway, with that being said.
Again, the motion before the board is to deny the request, and we ask that and we'll ask clerk to just get a count of the hands raised. If you are voting to deny, this is to deny the request, please use your voting sign of your right hand. Thank you. Those opposed to denying this request, use the voting sign of your right hand. Okay, you have that count? You have the count? It was me. I'm with the affirmative of the motion. Okay, so the motion carries to deny the request to rezone to, the count was 8-1, 8 in favor of denial, 1 opposed or denied. So that this item request has been denied. The recommendation is request has been denied. Next item is report from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a note, obviously this is an advisory board, or a recommendation to town council. Council will ultimately decide on October 10th. Same process, just for everybody in the audience to know that the same process for notification of adjacent property owners. We actually go a step further with a public hearing and publish one in the paper as well. So we have one more step, so you guys will be notified of that as well. But reports from staff, you guys have my staff report in the agenda packet. You guys can see we had a pretty brisk month as far as single-family homes being permitted. We are well above what we've been in the last couple of years. That's going to be mostly attributed to the townhome development on 11 at Main. But other than that, you know, we've got still a lot of interest in town. We've got a lot of people wanting to be here, which is a good thing. So this is why we go through these processes, to make sure that we can accommodate everybody and do it in a manner that's safely done, and we can accommodate everybody in that same way. But other than that, Mr. Chair, that's all I have. I'll answer any questions you guys have of me.
Any question for staff?
Mr. Killian.
Let's go into comments. There was no
Okay.
question for staff. We'll move to our next agenda, our last agenda item, comments by board members.
Y'all know I can do it.
Go ahead, Doug.
Brian, I really have a very concern. One of the roles of our planning board is to make recommendations from the community to the town board. And I have a concern, and I think we maybe should make a recommendation to the town board about retention ponds, or whatever you want to call them. And my concern is, I drove down through the Main on Mill subdivision today,
Okay.
and I see that there's foundations going in, but the road is not paved.
Okay.
My concern is that retention pond is very much deeper than a wading pool. I'll bet you it's about 5 foot deep in water right now, and I'm concerned about a young child getting in there and drowning. And I think that this board would be remiss if we don't take a few minutes and discuss that and see if we need to make a recommendation that the town board should really look at that. That's a problem.
Sure, and I can give you opinions on both sides.
But a swimming pool has to be gated,
That's right.
and that's 5 foot. A circular above-ground pool is 5 foot, and it has to be gated. I think that this town council, or this board, needs to take a minute and talk about it, and then come up with a recommendation for the council. We got a liability coming up if somebody drowns.
So legally, liability is not going to allow with the town. That's been established very well. So what's going to happen is you're going to see two sides to the story. You're going to see exactly what you're saying. Somebody could fall in, drown, get hurt, whatever. The other side is you fence it, and now you got kids wanting to jump that fence, which compounds the chance of getting hurt, being stuck inside. Now you can't get emergency services in there. So it's a tale of two coins, and it's really, like I said, the liability is not going to lie with the town. That's been well documented. It's something that really it's a hard choice to make, I think. But do you have it open or do you have it enclosed? I don't know the right answer. I just know there's two sides to it, and you're going to have arguments from both sides. I think from a standpoint of maintenance, you're going to want to see a fence not be in place. So if you're going to want that thing to function properly, you're going to have it accessible to machinery that can get in there and dip out any type of sediment, can make sure the plants in there are functioning properly, can make sure that thing has the functionality of that BMP is in place that doesn't cause flooding interior of that development or adjacent properties. So that's going to be your biggest proponent of not fencing it in. Obviously, the safety measure, it's unthinkable to even think about somebody getting in there and getting hurt. But that's one of the things that I don't think, if there's a fence there or if there's not a fence there, those problems are going to still be there. So I think there's going to be accessibility. There's no way to keep somebody out if they want to get in. So And I understand the small child perspective, wandering into it. Again, being in a neighborhood, I think that's going to be, as harsh as this sounds, you have to keep an eye on small kids wherever you're at. And that's part of I guess, the burden of being in a place where there's one there. It's not an easy answer, to be honest. And obviously, your guys' discussion and whatever you guys want to take to council, I'll forward that on, for sure.
I'm talking to the board now only, and I don't mean to hold you up late, but I really think that this board needs to take time either this week or next month and have this as a point on our agenda, because, and I really ought to look at that retention pond at Main and Mill. It's right behind that apartment house on Blount Street, and it's deep. The banks going into that retention pond are steep. And I can imagine my grandchildren, when they were 5 years old, they loved to run around. And I know parents try and keep an eye on them, but I just really think that this board needs to look at it, talk about it, and get if we have any opinions that are valid, maybe take them to the board. If not, we've decided that. But I think it should be an agenda item for discussion for next month.
If you don't mind, I've got a suggestion. So we actually had a stormwater workshop from Dr. Bill Hunt. He's with NC State. So Dr. Bill Hunt is probably the foremost expert on BMP design, especially when it comes to the actual treatment part of it. But I feel like his department could probably give some guidance on this. If you don't mind, I'll reach out to him and have a report back to you guys next month, and then make a decision then. That way it gives us a little bit more information.
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Any other comments from any other board?
Yeah, I had one. When we were, I don't mean to go back to requests that's been denied, but more of a conversation point. I did a quick search, Canterbury subdivision, the average home size is 1,900 square feet, Canterbury. Brian, can you recall off the top of your head any R15s locally that folks may be aware of that we can, R15, R20, kind of find a good middle ground? We're looking for a transition from R10 max or higher density to R20 where we're at here at Colonial Woods, a middle ground perhaps.
I think I'm getting your question right. So just a good example of a neighborhood that's playing higher than R10. So just north of this on Holly Grove is R12.5. So that's a 12,500 square foot lot size. I would argue that the minimum house size in there is probably around 2,200 square feet. If you're looking at the local real estate trends, those houses right now are probably going anywhere from $350,000 to $400,000 a pop right now, and they're selling like hotcakes in there. So, but those are probably in the area of 12,500 square feet to 15,000 square foot lot sizes in there. Which obviously, once you get into to that, the transition would be real. I think that could obviously be considered smooth as well.
Thanks.
Any other comments? There be no other comments from the board. We'll move to our last item, the adjournment. Got to move. It's been moved in second. All those in favor, use your voting sign, aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. We stand adjourned.